Let's get this show on the road. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Lord of the Rings.
And Hobbit and the Silmarillion and all things J.R.R. Tolkien. Hello, everybody. Let's get this road on the show. It is a pleasure to have you all here with us at another weekly edition of Torn Tuesday. Welcome to the OneRing.net. We are the biggest, longest lasting, all volunteer community website for fans of J.R.R. Tolkien. And believe it or not, there's a gentleman here on my side. His name is Justin, and my name is Clifford, and we're here to bring you another weekly edition of Torn Tuesday. We've got the adorable little gray cat, Mithrandir, who will probably make a guest appearance later on in the show. We've got news, gossip, breaking headlines. We've got all kinds of analysis for you, and maybe a little bit of mischief before we get to the end. Welcome, Justin. How have you been this past week? It's nice to see you again, sir.
Well, it's a great day for Manu Bennett because it's his birthday. Of course, he played Azog,
Yeah.
and he was in Spartacus, and he's been in a bunch of stuff. Isn't he in the Arrowverse too?
Oh, you know what? I don't know if Manu is in the Arrowverse, but he's a multi-talented man. The chat room is the always reliable source of great information.
That's right.
Welcome to the world of the chat. Hey, there's folks out there on Discord, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube chat. Everybody come and join us. Welcome aboard. Welcome.
And as much as we like our prosthetic orcs, I loved Azog's performance. Of course, he looks nothing like what Azog was on set before they reshot and refilmed and remade everything from two movies into 3 movies. So,
they did remake that Hobbit character majorly, and the only existence is there's a little bit of a moment where Galadriel blasts him away, and there's a toy. There's a toy out there, so that's how we knew that was Manu doing that great character. What a wild character that was.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
So, and look, and there
Happy
was
birthday,
a lot
Manu.
of debate going into Rings of Power. Would they use digital orcs like The Hobbit did? 100% digital orcs, no prosthetics in The Hobbit. Or would they use prosthetics? And they ended up using prosthetics from Weta Workshop. Weta Workshop is not involved in season 2, so now they've got the guy that did the prosthetics for The Last of Us on HBO. All the mushroom zombies. So I
fungi.
think at this
fungi
point,
zombies.
I'm okay with like half and half. I'd be okay with like a major digital orc as part of Rings of Power.
No, I don't want to see them going back to. I mean, it was nice to have a really cool ice troll. That digital ice troll was a badass design by John Howe. He was really cool. But no. The orcs are significantly better. Talk to Jed Brophy anytime, and he's a professional.
I'm not saying
and
replace.
he will tell
this
you.
This
he will
isn't
tell
an
you.
or and thing. Cliff, don't you want a little bit of both?
Okay.
I hate that people have this reaction.
No.
Like the minute you mention CGI orcs as a main character,
sometimes
you're like,
there's combinations.
I'm not saying get rid of.
I get it. I get it. But look at Treebeard. Let's look at Treebeard as an example because he was a hybrid. There was both completely digital version and also close-ups and in middle shots with Dominic and Billy strung up on this giant thing. And I was there that day. Do you know Daniel Falconer was giving me a tour of the soundstage in Wellington? And we were at the soundstage, I swear. And he says, "Come here, Clifford, I want you to see this." And we walked into the room where the life-size 1-to-1 scale Treebeard was built as an apparatus. And there were puppet masters who were behind it, moving its arms and rocking it on this chassis so that it would have the appearance of lumbering and movement as it walked. But it was only something shot from, the torso up. And that was the rig where the actors had to sit. And it was a great way that they approached a character that could be both real and digital in different shots. And throughout the film, it was a very seamless effect. It was great.
Yeah, but that's only half the story, Cliff, because as we found out in the appendices and our several conversations with Jim Rigel, VFX supervisor, here on this show, we found out that all of Treebeard's face in every single shot was digitally
Yes.
replaced digitally.
Yep.
So,
That's right.
so every time you see Treebeard on screen, it's CGI. So, your story here proves my point, which is
Okay.
combination of Jed Brophy type orcs in
Yeah.
prosthetics and Manu Bennett's digital orcs done very
Could be.
well.
It
Could
could
be
be.
very
All
well.
right.
And one
Could
of the
be. I'll
reasons
tell you what,
that
though.
I'm
The
excited
most
about
lovely.
this.
Yeah. Before you continue with that, the most lovely. Please allow me a tiny interjection. Daniel Falconer was so proud of what he'd built. Okay, there's a story about the craftsmanship there and the artistry that they built a giant physical tree beard. And he took me up to the rig and he said, "Look at that. We put a lovely little snail right in there in his beard." And he showed me this beautiful snail and all these details that they were putting in it. Okay, go on.
That got CGI'd
Go
out.
on.
Anyways, but
Oh,
in
did it?
the
I don't know.
Mandalorian,
I don't
when they
think
did
so.
the digital face replacement, they got rid of all those little details. But in the
Oh,
Mandalorian, it is a breath of fresh air to have the Mandalorian show with all these puppets, the robot puppets, the Baby Yoda puppet. It was so nice to have that Star Wars
yeah.
TV show
Yeah.
full of practical effects. But in that last season of The Mandalorian, in one of the final episodes of the season,
Yeah.
suddenly they go into this bar and there's this alien creature sitting at the bar having a
His
conversation with one of
his
the
name is
rebel
Zeb.
pilots.
His name is Zeb, and he is one of the leading characters of Star Wars Rebels. Rebels,
We
the
don't like to talk about
evergreen
cartoons here. No one watched the
evergreen popular
cartoons.
TV series.
I shouldn't have
Oh,
to watch
that's a
cartoons
lie.
to
You need to
understand what's
retract.
going on. I shouldn't have to watch
No.
cartoons to understand what's going on
You
in
need to retract
Ahsoka.
that. We just watched
I'm not.
Ahsoka because of the legacy of the animated series. Did we
And I
not?
didn't. And Ahsoka was terrible for the first four episodes, and
It
then
wasn't
finally
terrible.
got
It was
good
lovely.
and,
It was great.
understandable. But anyway, that
Oh,
purple
you do
alien
not underestimate
was
that
one of
purple
the
alien
first
Zeb.
CGI characters in a show that had a bunch of puppets, and it was really refreshing to see a well animated CGI character talking
Oh yes, he was
and
great.
having a conversation
He
in
was
the middle of a show that is full of puppets. And I thought that is a good balance, because when the CGI character showed up in Mandalorian, I was like, "Oh, that looks great."
Yeah,
Rather than having
he was
all
awesome.
these CGI characters all over the place that don't look great, and you're like, oh, "I just don't like CGI." But
Do you know what?
having all your focus on one single character that's done really well, like Azog, I think is CGI done well.
You know what? The CGI was done so well that, and I'm going to say acknowledgement to you, Eruvandi, in the chat. I'll acknowledge that you said that in the chat, because I wanted to say this too. Everybody wondered why the Zeb character, who was digital and excellent in his presentation, why did he not show up in Ahsoka? Because Ahsoka was reconnecting us with all of these familiar Rebels characters. He should have been there.
No, he shouldn't. I don't know. I don't know who he is, and I don't care. But he
Do you
was
know
a
what?
good-looking CGI
All right,
character.
but that's not sufficient for a Star Wars fan to say, I have ignored the Bad Batch. I have ignored the Clone Wars. I have stopped watching animated Star Wars. Why do you do that? Why do you have a bias against animation?
Because I stopped watching cartoons 15 years ago, which
What
is
about
when all
what
these
about
cartoons came out.
what about Miyazaki's ultimate new film coming out? And what about the
watching
great
cartoons 15 years ago?
Do you know what? You're starting to sound like Bill Maher, who said comic books are for kids, who for juveniles. No, 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 no. You are in a danger zone, because I'm telling you, the War of the Rohirrim is coming out, and we are embracing animation. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the OneRing.net. I want you to know, despite what my co-host and production partner is saying here, we embrace animation. We embrace and celebrate the animated art form, including hand-drawn, 2D, and CGI animation. We celebrate animators. I support the animators who are striking and gonna have a strike. I support all these guys, and they're the best people to give us a representation of things that we could not otherwise imagine. Look at the way that Ralph Bakshi and Rankin and Bass did things decades before
The much
Peter Jackson,
maligned Ralph Bakshi.
before
Everyone
Peter
has a
Jackson had the
giggle
chance or the
when you say Ralph
technology to do
Bakshi's
it.
Lord of the Rings. Everyone has a giggle because it's not great. It's kind of weird. It splits the 3 books into a weird thing. There's this like weird film effect.
That's why we keep reminding everyone that United Artists screwed him over. The studio screwed over the director. It's a story as old as Hollywood. We'll talk about that another day.
We'll talk about that later in the show. But happy birthday to Manu Bennett. Also, yesterday,
happy birthday, Manu.
Yesterday was Guillermo del Toro's big birthday.
Oh, yes, Guillermo del Toro. Do you know we still have dreams about the Hobbit film that he almost gave us?
Well,
we really do.
I wanted to get your reaction because in our Instagram comments, a person commented on our birthday post for Guillermo, totally missed this. How and when was del Toro involved in the Hobbit films?
Seriously?
That was a genuine comment. No snark, genuine comment on our Instagram. How does that make you feel, Cliff?
Read that to me one more time because I want to absorb that. Read that to me one more time.
Instagram comment here
really?
On our Instagram says,
so I heard it right the first time.
Totally missed this. How and when was del Toro involved in the Hobbit films? Shocked face.
Do you know what? I take pride in the fact that we do a live show every Tuesday because we're educating all the fandom on real topics, real historical connections, and real context to everything in the world of Tolkien. That is what we do. And it's a big job because there's a lot of games, movies, videos, and there's a lot of pieces in the big puzzle in addition to recognizing and acknowledging the literary history, the significant academic and literary history of Tolkien. But when somebody says to me, Oscar winner, multiple Oscar winner, Guillermo del Toro, what? He had no connection to The Hobbit? I think it's time to educate the children. Justin, class is in session. It's time to educate the children. All right. We do the best that we can here at Torn Tuesday, but if you can't get out from under the rock that you're living under to realize that Guillermo del Toro is one of the greatest voices in modern American cinema, and he's a Mexican American, along with Iñárritu, along with other Mexican directors, del Toro is bringing a unique voice to the phantasmagoric, to the genre. And he has brought more legitimacy to the genre of fantasy, science fiction, and those things that are considered the fantastique. Look at what he did, that anthology series he brought to Netflix. Look at what he brought to Pacific Rim. Look at what he brought to Pan's Labyrinth, which is a gut-wrenching, powerful drama, deeply rooted in the fantastic. At the same time, Guillermo del Toro can dance the dance between hard drama and fantastical realism. Nobody that I know of can really walk that tightrope the way that he does. He's a master at his art. And for you to not know that he was the one hired to do the Hobbit films, then you're just not paying attention. You're just not paying attention.
Well, I will offer a counterpoint, Cliff. You are just old, and
maybe
there's no reason to criticize our viewers. Some of them in the chat room right now saying they did not know about Guillermo del Toro's influence or involvement until they were loyal watchers of this show. So you are the old guy, and how dare you condescend to people who don't know 15-year-old history of projects that never came to fruition. So
I don't mean to condescend.
How dare you, old man?
I do not mean to condescend. I mean to educate.
The
How
chat
about
room
that?
says, Cliff, are you gatekeeping a little? He
Nope.
sure is, folks. Cliff, go ahead.
Huh?
You know what? You know what?
No,
The
no,
chat
funny.
room
That's
is
funny.
giving you your onions.
I appreciate the challenge. Thank you for the onions. I will chop those delicious onions. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to slow cook those onions to extract the sugar. Okay?
All
I
right.
will
Well,
slow cook those
we don't
onions
like
to
those gatekeepers
caramelize. It's
that
called
savor.
caramelizing the onions.
We do
Okay?
not savor gatekeeping here. And Cliff,
No, there's
I
no
hope that you
gatekeeping.
use this as an inflection point to
What's
understand your perspective and the
what's
fans'
good to
perspective
know
here.
What's good to know is that Peter Jackson was tired of Middle Earth. He was tired and he didn't want to do it. That's the overall story. It's not so much
There's
that,
a whole story. You know what?
I
We got a
mean,
lot to talk about,
really.
but I
Okay,
think
but serious. Okay,
I
seriously.
think you know what? You know who would do a great video on this? Nerd of the Rings. I'm going to suggest this.
He would. He would.
I'm going to DM him after
Ooh,
the show.
do you know what?
I think
I
Nerd of
would
the Rings
co-write
should
that. I need to
do
co-write that
a
with Matt.
nice little
That would be great.
video that says
That would be good.
what happened with Guillermo's. Because if we are getting comments on our Instagram and Facebook page already from people who
Yeah.
had no idea that Guillermo was that close, it would be really fun for Nerd of the Rings, because he's such a historical channel, to have a video dedicated to what happened. That would be a fun.
That would be
thing.
an excellent idea. I would be glad to co-write that with Matt. Chat is now saying, Justin, don't pretend you don't condescend just as much. Meow, meow, meow. Okay, meow, meow. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, meow. Now, what news do we have about the Gollum game failing? We have this headline on our video, and it has something to do with opening this conversation about the stealth Gollum video game that didn't hit the marketplace, ended up with a really interesting apology coming out in public from the publisher of the game. What is that?
That's
happened,
right. Well, if
Justin?
you guys remember, the game for Gollum came out, I believe, earlier this year. I believe it was like April or May.
Yeah.
And upon its release, all of the critics, it is currently the worst reviewed game of the year 2023. Everybody, even people that got review copies, said, I want to like this game, but it is so broken and it's just terrible. So it is
that's unfortunate.
the worst game of 2023, and has held that title for the last 6 months. And the day after release, Daedalic Entertainment posted this on their Twitter account saying, Dear players, we would like to sincerely apologize for the underwhelming experience many of you have had with The Lord of Ring, Gollum.
I can't believe the apology has such an egregious typo. Oh my God.
2 typos in that. Let me read that again.
That's awful.
The Lord of Ring, Gollum. That, my friends, was the official apology letter from the developers of the game. And everybody was just like, what? You disrespected Tolkien so much with the game, and then you doubly disrespect him with misspelling the Lord of the Rings to the Lord of Ring? That was crazy. And the reputation that Daedalic had was they just didn't care. Well, here we are 6 months later, and what's in the news this week is, turns out, Lord of the Rings Gollum apology letter was written using ChatGPT AI.
No way. No way.
That apology letter was written
dying.
by ChatGPT. And if you want to talk about why you do not want to use AI because as a final piece, again, my personal opinion is that AI is a tool.
Makes me angry. That makes me angry.
But AI is just a tool. It's not for a final product. And this apology letter was obviously written with AI because, again, they called it the Lord of Ring Gollum.
And it was never checked by an intern or a copy editor. Do you know, I used to have a job in Chicago as a copy editor, and it was literally my job to correct
Just spell
period, the
check.
comma, the hyphens, the capitalization of words, the most obvious and egregious errors of language, so that somebody who receives the information can at least receive the information properly. Oh my gosh.
Well,
What a mess.
so
What a
that
mess.
was the big AI news that broke just after we had a wonderful conversation last week about AI and
That was
its
an
many
interesting convo.
uses.
Yes, it
And
was. Yes.
again, I think this is an evolving area of work. I wouldn't call AI creativity. It's just a tool for work because it's not very creative. And
True.
as we talked about, I personally see some good uses for AI, and we explained it on the show last week. And Cliff was joined in the chorus of the entire chat room and most of the fandom in saying, "No room for AI. Just throw it out with the trash." So so the developers released that thing. Here's where it gets crazy. Further information has just been released today. That basically said in this new article on Rock Paper Shotgun that the developers, Daedalic Entertainment, did not know that apology letter was being released. And it turns out Daedalic
Holy
made the game,
moly.
but the game was published by Nacon Entertainment, a whole different company. A developer and a publisher are usually two different companies. The
Holy
publisher
moly.
actually created that thing, that AI apology letter, and Nacon put Daedalic's logo on it, and Nacon had control of the Twitter account, and Nacon is responsible for this apology letter. And so we did some digging. We called around and we got confirmation. We can confirm here that we've talked to employees at Nacon, and they absolutely 100% use AI Chat GPT in their course of work on a daily basis for things
It's
like
horrid.
this. For
Horrid.
things like
Absolutely
this,
horrid.
for marketing messaging, for ads on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and for internal PowerPoint presentations, they use AI Chat GPT a lot. And so what happened was when the game was released to poor reviews, Nacon, because they were using AI so much, they were just so comfortable with it, that they put into the AI Chat GPT, please write an apology letter for a broken game. And this is what the AI put out. And rather than editorial
doing it with a real
it,
human being writing it, doesn't it give you the feeling that this apology is therefore so much more insincere? So doesn't it give you the feeling then that the apology was not written by or considered by or even thoughtfully reasoned out by a human being, and therefore there's no
right.
human consciousness behind it, and it is meaningless? Now,
yeah,
it's just
well,
meaningless.
more information we can reveal today. Right
Wow.
now on this show, we can reveal that not only was Daedalic not involved in that misspelled AI generated Chat GPT apology letter, but Daedalic was starved of funds. We have information on this article and a couple other interviews that Daedalic was charged with making a AAA tentpole Lord of the Rings quality video game.
Yeah.
Which normally costs $100 million. That's how much it costs to make games nowadays. The latest expansion to Cyberpunk cost $80 million. And that was an expansion pack. So a full regular game usually costs around $100 million or more. That's just how much great games cost at this level that you would expect from Lord of the Rings. Cliff, do you want to know how big their budget was on this game?
I'm going to imagine that it was in between 10 and 20 million.
You're right on the money. $15 million.
There you go. There you go.
Nearly 10%, 10 to 20% budget of what a game like this should have cost. You want to know why there aren't good fonts in the game? It's because the budget didn't allow them to license good fonts and roll it out to the 10 million copies or 5 million copies that they needed to do to put it on store
good
shelves.
Gravy. Really?
Yeah.
Not
so
even
they just
not
didn't
even
have
getting
the
money out for the fonts.
They didn't have the money for fonts.
Oh dear.
They also say the lack of money combined with a time factor, as the license to make this Lord of the Rings franchise game was time limited. Basically, Nacon and Daedalic had only a license to make one game, and if they didn't release it this year, they were going to lose the license and they wouldn't be able to publish the game. So this was a Hail Mary, a last-ditch effort, because their license was expired, and the license was based on the previous deal before Embracer took over. So they didn't want to try to renegotiate with the new owners of Embracer.
So this was just a quick and dirty. Get it done before we lose the license.
Just a
That's
quick
so
and dirty.
not cool. And you know what? That explains everything. They weren't in it to respect Tolkien or to have integrity to Tolkien or to have any reasonable approach to adapting J.R.R. Tolkien in a way that had some integrity or some value or some reasonable artistic interpretation. They weren't even in it for that. They just wanted to get it done quick and dirty and get it out the door before the time ran out on the deal.
And if you lose your license with that, if you lose your license, you don't get extensions. Like if the license says you have to release a game or movie or TV show by a certain date,
but if you release a disastrous game, you will also lose your license. Maybe.
Well, they were already going to lose it. They were running out of time. They didn't give it enough money.
Oh dear.
And everyone that came to our San Diego Comic-Con party, as a token of gesture, everyone got a code for a free copy of Lord of the Rings Gollum game at our San Diego Comic-Con. If you were at our party at San Diego Comic-Con,
copy.
Look for our little white cards, because it includes a redeemable code for PlayStation, some for Xbox, some for Steam, and some for PlayStation for a free copy of the game, because it got one update post-release that fixed a lot of the glitches, and that update was rolled out to Xbox, Steam, and PlayStation. So all versions of the game except Nintendo Wii got the updated bug fix update, but that's it. So we want to thank the fine folks at Daedalic, who are wonderful people, who loved Tolkien, who loved The One Ring and Nerd of the Rings, and all the fans that they gave us free copies in July if you came to our party. And they were fans of Lord of the Rings. And here's the problem. Daedalic isn't the one that misspelled the Lord of the Rings. It was their cheap publisher that did not give them enough money,
goodness gracious,
or enough time, or an extension needed to make the game as good as Daedalic wanted it to be. So I feel like Daedalic was everybody got laid off from Daedalic. I think they're closing the studio, and I think that's unfortunate. And I just want everybody to know here on this show that if you hear people talking bad about Gollum game, that's fine. It's a bad game. But if you hear people talking bad about Daedalic, how they disrespect
that's
Tolkien,
something else.
We want to change that conversation.
That's something else.
And we want you, the viewer here, to remember what this story we just told. And defend the developers, Daedalic, and everybody that worked on this game, because they did their best with 1/10 of the money that they should have had, and half the time.
With a lot less time that they needed to do it right. Yeah, totally understand.
They didn't even have the budget to put the right fonts in.
Gosh. Thank you for contextualizing this for us. And it is kind of more interesting to know that that horrible Chat GPT apology did not come from them. It didn't come from them.
It came
It
from
came
the
from the
publisher
other,
Nacon.
which is a different quadrant of people. It's good to know that.
Hey,
It's good to
Cliff,
know that.
there's a comment. Daniel in chat room on Facebook says 2002's Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring by Vivendi Universal seems to have had more success than the recent Gollum game.
I'm glad that somebody mentioned that, because I was about to mention that out of personal and professional chagrin, because I did the voice of Samwise in that game, and it is universally acknowledged as being not that great of a game. It's just not good. And it came out of a similar situation where they didn't have enough time and they were competing against the licensed EA games. Now, Electronic Arts, EA, has this massive campus in Playa del Rey. They have massive resources and people they hired, and they had all the world, all the money, and all the time to make what was classic high-end Lord of the Rings video games for consoles. And I know that my participation as a voiceover artist is not at all connected to the designers or the video game developers or any of that stuff. My contribution is just to make Samwise sound vulnerable, strong, curious, and excited, and just energized by everything that's happening in his world around him. That's my job. I didn't know, I had no idea that my little Fellowship of the Ring Xbox game from Universal Studios would be so crappy. I didn't know it was going to be like that. And I didn't write it. I didn't write the damn thing. I did not put that stuff at the end of the game where Samwise is kidnapped by a flying Nazgul and you have to run around and rescue Samwise from the freaking Black Riders on the fell beast. Don't blame me. Don't come complaining to me. I'm just the guy who did a voice. But I will admit, and I'm glad somebody else in the chat did it before I did it, I will admit that when game developers are pushed into these corners without enough budget and without enough time, without enough resources, the result is going to be like that. It's just the way it's going to be.
And they took the heat. They took the heat.
They did. They did. Wait, and I'm still embarrassed. I actually use the word chagrin. And you know that I never use that word chagrin unless I really mean it.
It doesn't have enough syllables for you. But this brings up an important conversation, Cliff, is when it comes to video games, do you think the general gaming audience, gamers in general, are they just looking for video games that are related to the movies and the TV shows that they love? Because you had your Fellowship of the Ring game that was not based on Warner Brothers movies, because EA was developing a competing game in partnership with Warner Brothers. Your game 20 years ago had no affiliation with Warner Brothers, and here we are 20 years later,
and that was the struggle. The game had a big struggle in the marketplace because of that fact. Yes,
right. Well, and here we are with Gollum game, and it does not have a license to Amazon or Warner Brothers. They tried to take a big swing doing something on their own. But do you think gamers just want adaptations of the movies and the TV show?
No, gamers want something really good. Really good. Red Dead Redemption is not an adaptation of anything. Nino no Kuni is not an adaptation of anything. It's an original Miyazaki vision. It's an original high-stakes Western frontier video game where you're the cowboy in the great American Western frontier. The Skyfall. I'm sorry. What's the new one? Not the James Bond movie Skyfall. Skyrise.
Starfield.
I meant to say Starfield. You know what? I haven't had enough coffee today. I'm sorry. But Starfield, all these original IPs and these video games that succeed, even if they're not connected to an existing IP, that's not necessary for its survival or its artistic success. That's not necessary.
Okay, okay, that starts to answer my question.
Yes, and Shadow of Mordor was amazing. I'll acknowledge that. There's some Lord of the Rings games that stand out.
It got a ton of criticisms for the liberties it took against the lore, like making Shelob an actual woman instead of a spider.
I'm still going to criticize that. It's weird.
Celebrimbor
That's
is
weird.
a villainous anti-hero almost in the game. I guess the question is, with Gollum failing, Amazon is making an MMORPG. Amazon Games is making an MMORPG, officially licensed.
To compete with the existing marketplace where there's an LOTR online.
Right. So they're making a high-def AAA version of an online MMORPG to compete with Lotro. But rather than leverage Amazon's other Lord of the Rings thing, the Rings of Power, this game will be set in the Third Age. So I don't imagine that Amazon is going to license from Warner Brothers, because why? They don't want to do that.
No.
So is there room for Amazon? What do you think about Amazon basing their big MMORPG? As I just said, it's going to cost over $100 million to make the MMORPG in the Third Age, but it's going to be based. It's not going to look like Warner Brothers. Is that a risk?
It's an incredible challenge.
Or do people just want a good story, a good game?
Well, people do want a really, really good game, but I mean, it's not like you're coming into the place with a brand new version of Lord of the Rings Online. Dude, just like their TV show, Rings of Power, their video game is coming into the marketplace where there's already a massive existing footprint of the previous game. Their TV show comes onto streaming when there's a massive existing footprint of Peter Jackson's 6 Lord of the Rings and Hobbit films. What a huge cultural imprint that's already there. I think that Amazon has bitten off a big challenge. This is a big challenge for them.
I find it weird that they're not trying to make a big old game in the Second Age, because I'm going to be honest with you, knowing what little I know about the Second Age, I want to play in that world because it is dark, it is heavy, there's a lot of warring tribes going on. It is it is claiming land. The elves claim land, men claim land, the Numenorians claim land. There's a lot.
There's ecological devastation because the Numenorians cause the deforestation of Eriador.
The Ents lose so much stuff. Wives.
And that too, yes.
And there's a lot of trade going on. So there's this weird competition, friendly competition. It's kind of weird where they're like different lands are politically opposed, but they have to trade together. This is what the Middle Earth is in the Second Age. And it's shocking to me that Amazon would not exploit that as an MMORPG, an online RPG where you, Cliff, could choose your faction, your race. I could choose mine, and we would be forced to war or trade, or war and trade, because it's an online RPG, so we're playing with and then against each other, right? So I feel like the Second Age is a way better use of Amazon's effort, rather than to compete with Lotro, which is a wonderful game still getting expansions.
I agree. I fully agree with that assessment. What's happening here is they're bearing the greatest risk of repeating what somebody else has already done. And that's not really the biggest creative space to give your game designers and developers a place to grow, is it?
And, and I think a good MMO game is on the second age based on Rings of Power gives you all the options of all the $1 billion creative budget that the show has. Like, you've already designed amazing costumes, amazing sets, and you're not going to try to use that for the game, because the most successful Lord of the Rings games were based on Warner Brothers movies.
Super good point. You've made an excellent point.
You want guaranteed
Justin,
success?
You made a good point.
You want guaranteed success? Like, base it on your show. And I don't understand why they're making a competing MMO in... I understand why they're doing it, because for years now, the biggest complaint about Lotro is its graphics haven't been updated in 10 years or longer. But it runs on every game, every computer system you can think of, right? So I get that there's a marketplace desire for a high-end Elder Scrolls, Cyberpunk, Starfield, Grand Theft Auto version of Lord of the Rings that just
with
looks
much
like
improved
the best graphics.
Graphical representation of Middle Earth.
By the way,
I understand that desire. Yes.
Thank you for the chat room for reminding me. The Grand Theft Auto 6 budget is approaching $500 million. So there is
that's nuts. That's nuts.
Potentially,
dude.
Amazon's Lord of the Rings MMO game will cost as much as the first season of Rings of Power did. $500 million of cash. $500 million of cash to make.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
It's just wild.
That's crazy.
So I don't know. I want to know from the chat room. Would you guys want a second age? Am I out of line? Or, I mean, what do you guys want? Do you guys want a high def, good graphics MMO set in the third age with all your familiar characters, or do you want to play in the second age sandbox using all the characters we are starting to grow to love with Rings of Power? Where do you, the fans, I want to know in the chat room, where do you, the fans, sit on this? What would you want to spend your hard-earned money, and more important than money, the 100 or more hours of playtime?
I love this quick response we have from Otaku Senpai. We'd like to see Grand Theft Auto Gotham City. Okay, I'd be down with
that. We're Lord of the Rings fans. Nothing you said makes.
I would love to see Gotham City as a setting for Grand Theft Auto. That's actually a cool idea. Or you know what? Why don't we do Grand Theft Auto The Shire, where we're stealing ponies? You're not really stealing automobiles, but you're walking around the Shire trying to steal ponies, maybe a couple of goats, maybe a couple of chickens. I mean, it's not so bad to steal a homestead chicken. You can have fresh eggs every morning. That'd be cool. We could steal farm animals in the Shire. Why not?
All right. Well, that's what Amazon's up to. There's another game that
racing wagons. Yeah.
You know, as we talk about the Gollum game earlier this year, there's a palate cleanser that has just come out recently, and it is,
what is that?
Tales of the Shire, a brand new game.
Oh, look, there's a lot of people in the chat have been talking about this today. Everyone's like, have you seen this new stuff for the Shire video game?
Weta has produced.
Oh, show us this. Show us this
teaser video.
Yeah, show us. I want to see it.
Weta is making Tales of the Shire with a private division, a very successful video game company. If you look at private division, you might have played their games before. Tales of the Shire, a Lord of the Rings game coming 2024 next year.
That is something to be excited about. That's really exciting.
And I can confirm for you guys right here, right now. What is this game? It is The Sims 4 with a lot of Animal Crossing in it. So if you want to know what this game is going to be, it's not going to be like a Zelda action adventure. Think Animal Crossing with The Sims. That's
Okay.
what
Okay.
this game
I'm in.
is going to be.
Do you know how many
And
comments
I
we've
think that's
made?
exclusive information.
Is that an exclusive reveal on our show? I love it. I'm looking forward to this game, and especially because in context, we've talked a lot about wouldn't it be cool to have Dominic and Billy come back and solving little miniature crimes in the Shire, like the detectives of the Shire, and they're like the Hardy Boys. Imagine Billy and Dom as Merry and Pippin, going through the Shire and solving ridiculous little mysteries like who stole that
It's
goat
not
and stuff
really
like that.
it's not really a voice acting game. It's more like speech bubbles where like the sound is like pew, pew, like that type of thing. It's not really like Billy and
Okay.
Dom coming to voice a
Okay.
character.
Okay. That sounds cool, though. It
Yeah.
sounds really cool. And what could be more therapeutic and relaxing than to wander around in the Shire? Wait,
Yes.
people talk about Animal Crossing in that way all the time. They say it's relaxing, it's like gardening, even though I don't have to dig my hands in the soil. It's like relaxing and chill and gardening, kind of meditative, therapeutic style of play. I think that's pretty cool to put that in the Shire as an environment. I think that's a great idea. Great idea. I'm all in. I'm all in on this.
And of
All
course,
in.
Animal Crossing was a
I
huge
love it.
hit during the lockdowns. And remember, Elijah Wood
Yeah, it
famously
was.
played Animal Crossing, and it went viral when he would visit other people's islands for their
He
turnips.
did. Oh my God. Elijah Wood visiting other people's islands in Animal Crossing was the highlight of COVID lockdowns. For me, I would be like dying if I built a stupid little island in a game and I had stupid things all over the place, like flowers and fountains and a bathtub. And suddenly Elijah Wood is here. Hey, can I buy some of your carrots or flowers or whatever he wants to buy? I'm like, no way. I would literally fall down. It's hilarious. But I think Elijah Wood is more a salt of the earth kind of guy, like Samwise, like Sean Astin. These are people who are actors, yes, and they're famous, yes, but they're definitely relaxed, salt of the earth kind of people who like to chill with a good console video game or get on their Switch and play a good competitive Smash Brothers with somebody. People are just relaxed people most of the time, but it would have been a divine like treat, a really big fan treat. I would have loved it if I had an Animal Crossing island. I never did, honest. I have to admit, I never got
Well,
into the
now you
game,
can have a
but it's
Shire
so cool.
island. You can have your little
No,
corner of the
I'm
Shire.
going to get into that Shire game. I'm going to be one of the first purchasers of that Shire game. I'm so there. I'm so there. It's so cool.
So that's
It's
coming
really
out
cool.
next year. It is said to me we've had people that have played this game already, an early alpha build, and I can't say
Did someone say
what they
Weta
said.
design? Someone in the chat says Weta design. Is that related to the Shire, the Tales of the Shire game?
Yeah, Tales
Does
of the Shire
Weta
is
have
a
their
Weta
hand in it?
game. It's a Weta game.
Oh, even more reason to be totally keyed into this. Really
Yes,
love it. I love it. That's
Animal
great.
Crossing made by Weta, based in the Shire. That's what this game is.
That's such a great idea. You know what? I have to stop and think, why hadn't someone thought of that earlier? Because that's a great idea for a game format. It
Yeah.
really is.
So that's
Okay.
that's probably the most exciting game coming out. But before that game comes out, I believe we're going to get the Moria game, which the Tolkien professor has been consulting on. But they've gone quiet right now. I think they're heads down into finishing the game.
Yeah.
Peter
Yeah, of
Jackson
course.
is not involved in this game. Let me be clear. 2 years ago, no, it was last year. Last year, Peter Jackson sold Weta to Unity. Unity has been in the news this week
Didn't he
because
sell some of the development software of
they
Weta
he
specifically?
he basically sold Weta. Weta Digital is
Yeah.
a different company than Weta
Yeah.
Workshop. Weta
That's true.
Workshop is who's making Tales of the Shire. So
Ah, yes. Okay.
this is Richard
Yes.
Taylor's company. Weta
Yes.
Workshop is doing Tales of the Shire, not Peter Jackson's company. Um, Peter Jackson, Green Dragon Gossip. Peter Jackson's working on a sequel to the Beetle Doc, but we'll
Yep.
get into that
Green
in a bit.
Dragon Gossip that Peter Jackson is working on. What? How many Emmy Awards did he win for the Get
He
Back
won
Beatles
3 Emmy
documentary?
Awards, and he's coming back for more.
You're
And Peter
you're
Jackson
killing me,
is
Larry.
using AI, used AI to make the footage look better, and used AI to make the sound better. So there's good uses for
Whoa.
AI, and this
Yeah,
is
it's
a
a
nice.
tool.
It's
It's a
a
tool.
tool. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
tool.
a tool. Yeah.
And speaking of AI tools, I just want to bring this up because Disney's Loki was getting a lot of heat this week because their poster for the new season, which just came out, and it's
Yes.
great. I'm all in on the Loki show. It's really fun. But
Oh, I love the low-key show. It's a great show. Yeah.
everyone complained that the poster was AI generated.
I heard contradicting reports that there was a real human artist who was sitting somewhere in a desk, very dismayed that people were falsely reporting that it was AI generated.
This is true, and it is fake news because someone did
Yes.
the homework,
Yep.
and
Yep.
the poster.
Exactly.
If you look here, the poster says the tell is the V, the 5, the V in the clock goes into
Yeah.
squiggles, and that was
Yeah.
the tell. So everybody thought,
Yeah.
oh, they've used AI on this because that is a tell of AI. Well, it turns
Yeah.
out that
Yeah.
that actual clock background, and again, it's not Loki himself; it's the clock in the background.
Yeah.
That clock was an actual Shutterstock image,
Oh, that they
and
licensed.
that
And
Shutterstock
yeah.
image has the
Yeah.
squiggles around
Okay.
the V. So this is an actual Shutterstock. They didn't use AI on it at all. So it
Indeed.
turns out, and of course this image is on the App Store and everything like that. So it turns out that the Photoshop artist that made the poster for Loki just licensed a piece of Shutterstock that is um, that is not tagged with AI, and also Shutterstock does not allow AI
That's true.
on
That's true.
right. It doesn't allow AI, and if it catches you, you get your
Well,
account deleted. So this was from an actual
well,
Shutterstock license. So it wasn't the
yeah.
poster artist doing it.
Well, then it becomes an interesting conversation about how much misinformation gets spread around and everybody starts to believe it. Now that's what we're talking about. We are unfortunately living in an age, a digital age, where misinformation reigns supreme. And that is one of the most unfortunate aspects of where we are right now.
I think
It's
people
very bad.
are I think people are just trigger happy to cancel anybody using AI, and we saw that with the Tolkien wiki,
Well,
the Middle Earth wiki, which I feel got unfairly called out for. People disagree with me because it was using AI in a good way, in a responsible way, and people don't feel like that. And I feel like this poster, everybody like it's fake news, but it spread like wildfire because everybody wants to condemn AI so quickly. And I'm like, it's just a
yes.
tool. And Peter Jackson uses AI to clean up old
But
Beatles footage. And
pe-
Peter Jackson
people want
uses
to
AI.
condemn people want to condemn specific uses and placement of AI that represents a threatening supersedence. If you're going to supersede real human beings and real human artists, that's a different conversation than just using AI as a convenient tool. That's a different conversation.
So I think the conversation is gonna continue going. That yes, there are bad uses of
Yeah.
AI,
Yeah.
but there are some good uses, and we have to have an allowance for
Oh,
good uses.
guess who's here from a long expected soundscape? It's
Oh,
great
that's
to have you
wonderful.
here in the
Um,
YouTube chat. Welcome. Welcome. It's good to have you here.
Cliff, and then I wanted to bring up a final thing, and it kind of feels
Yes.
like out of left field, but you can probably put the dots together and see where this could lead.
I'll
This is
try.
huge news today.
I'll try.
Baz Luhrmann has used 2 million square feet of cut footage from
Yeah.
his hit film Australia and turned it
Yeah.
into a 6-part streaming series
Wow.
retitled Faraway Downs.
Wow.
Baz Luhrmann
That
is using
that's a surprise element. I didn't expect this today. That's a surprise.
Baz Luhrmann is taking all of hours and hours of cut footage from his film Australia and turning it
Wow.
into a 6-part streaming series. And
Because
everyone's
he shot so much stuff. He shot so much footage. They didn't even know what to do with it for the theatrical film itself. Wow. Wow.
and so if this goes well, all the studios are considering more efforts like this. And Cliff, would you be
Oh,
open
I see where you're
to
going now.
the Peter Jackson Ultimate Unicorn Super
Yes, I
Extended
would.
Cut,
You're
not as
killing
a
me, Larry.
film, not as
You're
a film?
killing me, Larry. I love this idea. I love this idea.
What
Oh my
should
gosh.
Cliff, should Peter Jackson recut Lord of the Rings into a 6-part, 6-book super
Yes.
extended?
Yes. Yes. The answer is always yes. The answer is a thirsty yes. Why am I so thirsty? Why am I so thirsty right now? The answer is yes. Okay. You, you wanna take all that unused footage from the Lord of the Rings and put it into full context with finished music, effects, editing, post-production? The answer is yes, 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 yes. The answer is a wildly exuberant yes. I'm all here for that. I'm
And
so
it's
here for
not
that.
just Arwen at Helm's Deep, folks. They shot Eowyn and Arwen's wedding. No, they shot Eowyn's wedding to Faramir. They shot a nightmare scenario where Frodo gets the ring and turns into a golem.
Yep, they did.
They've shot. There are hours and hours of scenes where even Samwise gets dragged underwater at the end of Fellowship. He doesn't
And
just come
there were
swimming
scenes
out.
there were scenes when Uruk-hai grabbed him under the water.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's
Yeah.
hours of footage on the cutting room floor
Yeah.
that Peter Jackson could work back in. So right now, Cliff, how long are the extended edition movies? It's 3 movies, 4 hours
Okay.
each on average. That's 12 hours.
Fellowship of the Ring is 3 hours and 19 minutes. The Two Towers extended, I think, is 3 hours and 24 minutes. The extended Return of the King is, if I'm not mistaken, almost 4 hours long, 3 hours and 42 minutes.
All right, so 11
3 hours and 42 minutes for extended Return of the King.
So
I'm
nearly
not crazy. Am I crazy?
10 and a half, 11 hours of footage. So an extended version would probably be another hour or 2 of footage. So that puts us at 12 or 13 hours. And Cliff, tell me again, didn't Tolkien initially want to publish Lord of the Rings as 6 books?
He originally wanted to publish it as one complete volume. Sorry.
One volume, but 6 books.
Well, the books were just supposed to be convenient sections within the one book. That's all.
One volume.
They're just separators of sections.
It's still 6 books.
No, but the name of a 6-book concept is not a separate published item. They were just sections of one 1,200-page single volume story.
So how should they split a 13-hour, let's call it a 14-hour Lord of the Rings Extended Edition series? Do you want 7 episodes, 2 hours each? Do you want 14 episodes, 1 hour each?
Yes and yes. I'll take anything I can get.
So you would
The answer is yes.
accept a Lord of the Rings that
The
is
answer is
recut
yes.
into. And by the way, Peter Jackson is such a perfectionist and a cinematic filmmaker. He would make sure that if it's an hour each hour is a complete story.
Look, the rumors that I've been hearing are not even considering the possibility of what Baz Luhrmann has done with this unused footage of Australia, which is an interesting entry point to come into this conversation. But all the rumors I've been hearing is that the success of Get Back, the Beatles documentary format, which is a special 3-part miniseries documentary format, but that has been so successful for Peter. Obviously, all these Emmy Awards and all the critical acclaim and the acclaim of fans, especially the Beatles fans around the world, which are delighted. But now you look at that success, and what I'm hearing is that all the unused footage of Lord of the Rings trilogy would not be like reshaped into a new edited version of a new wildly stretched out story. But instead, we might be looking at a documentary format where there's a mini series of look at all the stuff we didn't use. It was like this, and it was like this.
That's what the rumors have been up to now, where it would be a documentary series. But I'm telling you now that Baz Luhrmann, and by the way, this is going on Disney Plus and Hulu.
Okay.
In a couple months. But would you be okay, Cliff, if Peter Jackson reimagined his award-winning trilogy into
maybe
episodic
versions? I don't want to see him reimagine his entire trilogy. To be honest, I would rather have an archive, a more objective academic archive of everything that was there, and have the documentary presented in a smart and artful way, a really artful way, where the documentary is taking us through the phases of production, the early difficulties of production, the later boost that they got after the first movie came out, Fellowship, and all the awards and all the critical acclaim. They got a big boost, and that means the later work they were doing was supported by this awareness of what they were doing. And I'd like to see a documentary explore the ins and outs of the interior lives.
So I want more appendices instead of new content.
Wait, didn't you think it was useful to look at the interior lives of John, Ringo, Paul, and George? That's why it was amazing. That's why it was more satisfying. We learned more about the interior lives of larger-than-life people. And if we get to have Peter Jackson put his unused footage together, we could, conceivably, learn more about the interior lives of the production and the crew.
I don't need that.
The cast,
I don't
everything that they had to put up with.
No,
I'm
not
that
on board
shit.
with this. I don't
love
need
that.
It. I don't want it. The appendices are award-winning documentaries and the
that's
best
fair.
filmmaking school that anyone could have. And I think the appendices stand on their own. And but the only thing people want to see is the footage that was shot, the weddings, the outfits, the things that we didn't see that they spent so much money on. I want to see that. I want to see it worked back into the story. And if that requires a re-editing and a rejiggering of things, remember, The Godfather, when it came to TV, it was recut as The Godfather Saga. So there is
my goodness.
precedent.
And why does anybody not go back and request The Godfather Saga? Why is it you go to the Blu-ray store and try to get a copy of The Godfather, but you don't purchase that?
Because
you purchase the original films. Come on.
Right. I'm not saying, again, this is about, back to what you were saying about CG versus prosthetic orcs. I'm not saying either or. I'm saying and. If you're going to do a streaming version, recut Lord of the Rings, do 14 one-hour episodes, and that's fun. You can always go back to
Okay.
the movies. The movies are not changing. They still are award winning. And by the way, the argument you just made, how come nobody goes and watches the theatrical cuts anymore, huh? Like, oh, you don't like change at all? Then why aren't you watching the theatrical cut?
Oh,
That's what I'm saying.
you can't bring in the theatrical cut in the same conversation of should Peter Jackson rework the entire editorial approach to his masterpiece.
It won all the
That's not the
awards. By
same
the
thing.
way, extended edition did not win any Oscars.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
been 20 years. It's
Okay.
time to recut Lord of the Rings into a
You're so funny.
14
You're so
part
funny.
super
You're
extended
so funny.
unicorn edition.
Our
That's my final opinion.
our wonderful friends in the chat are saying Cliff wants, quote, anything you can imagine, the book in a movie form. And that is a reference to the Peter Jackson biography. And my answer is hell yes, I want that. I want to learn about the internal struggle of the artist. I am forever fascinated by that type of approach. The internal struggle of the artist. That's fascinating to me. It's fascinating.
Well, maybe we can have both.
I love
Warner
that stuff.
Brothers, you're itching for content. Make the deal with Peter Jackson. Make the deal with Peter Jackson. Give him an extended edition series recut. Give us a documentary series so Cliff can be happy, and make Peter Jackson the Kevin Feige of Middle Earth. And that's what we want, and that's our show today.
Make Peter the Kevin Feige of Middle Earth. Oh, well, that's so funny. Is that really our show?
That's all
we got.
Is
that really our show?
Yeah, that's all we got.
Okay, well, I've got one last thing. Okay, I've got one last thing. So much effort, and I'm going to make a slight Venn diagram that will connect Walt Disney Studios and the Rankin and Bass animation and the Ralph Bakshi animation. But a lot of effort has been put into big time, expensive 4K restorations of Cinderella and even today, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, this groundbreaking piece of history in animation, they hired the animation supervisors, they hired the animator from all these huge movies, and they get the entire archive team together, and they scrub, clean, and restore hand-drawn pieces from Cinderella from the 1950s and from Snow White, which, believe it or not, was released in the 1930s. Don't get me crazy, but I think the original release date of Snow White was 86 years ago. I'm sorry, 86 years ago. Now, what would benefit the Tolkien community, and I'm going to advocate for this very briefly, but to take a look at these old animations that Rankin and Bass did in the 1970s for The Hobbit and their Return of the King, and even more, I would love to see a dutiful and professional restoration of Ralph Bakshi's wildly erratic and inventive psychedelic Lord of the Rings released in 1978. Wouldn't it be amazing? Just put this in your thinking cap. Put this feather in your cap and think about it. If Disney Studios can do all this hardcore restoration work on Snow White and on Cinderella, where they painstakingly correct the color grade scene by scene, they make adjustments from the bad digital process they did on Blu-ray, and it did work effectively for Fellowship of the Ring in the exact same way. The connection here is very clear. Fellowship of the Ring on high definition Blu-ray always had an unfortunate green tint. The whole movie was puke green. They had this really bad mistake in the color grading, and they did not fix it until there was a 4K restoration. So suddenly we're looking at Fellowship of the Ring and the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy in this dynamic HDR, Dolby Vision, beautiful 4K, stunning what work they did. I think, in this man's opinion, because I'm a big animation fan and I'm an animation historian as much as I'd like to think I am, I think it's time for Ralph Bakshi and Arthur Rankin Jr., Jules Bass, to have their Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies fully restored by those people who will correct dust, dirt, scratches on the negative. I want to see an original interpositive negative 4K scan. If the elements exist, they need to find it and they need to do the restoration. It's time. It's time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to my TED Talk. Thank you. And with that, we're at the end of Torn Tuesday, another remarkable episode on a Tuesday afternoon, evening, where we're bringing you the latest in news, gossip, and mischief from the world of J.R.R. Tolkien. Justin might be off screen right now, but he's ready to close the curtain on another successful episode. Before we go, big acknowledgement to Durin the Seventh, XOXO 2000, Daisy Kim, Cecilia. Oh my God, there's Brian, there's Otaku Senpai, and so many wonderful friends. Hello, Jean. Hello, Monica. Hello, Jean. And hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for making our community what it is. A very special, dynamic community of Tolkien fans who love to bring their A game to any conversation about J.R.R. Tolkien. Well, good night, everybody. We're going to say thank you for joining us. Next week, Justin, do we have a preview of some of the news or some of the items that we're going to talk about next week? Do we have any preview? No? Maybe not. I will assume from his ongoing silence in the control room that no, we do not have any upcoming breaking news. But you know what? Look out, Fellowship of the Fans. Before we close the show, I think I want to mention before we go that FOF, our good buddies at Fellowship of the Fans, had a breaking news story that there's a release date in September of 2024 that season 2 of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power on Prime Video.
We said that first.
I thought that our scoop, or was he sharing our scoop? Okay. We're looking at next September in less than 1 year from today. Look out for season 2. Yep.
Labor Day weekend.
Same bat time, same bat channel. Looking forward to a magical release of season 2, or as Justin likes to call it, season 1, part 2 of Rings of Power. Good night, everybody. It's wonderful to have you all here. Lots of love to our ongoing, thriving community of fans. Look out for us. I'm QuickBeam2000 on Instagram and Twitter, and you can follow us on the One Ring Net on all these social channels. Until next week, as I always like to say, good night and good luck. Or better yet, buenos noches y buena suerte. Hasta luego. Mañana.